it's all for play for still?
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hello, Aston Villa fans. Welcome to For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast and for a debrief on Villa's victorious day against Man City at the weekend. And we didn't get to talk to Paddy after the game, so I asked him, I said, listen, Paddy, we need to get your thoughts now. What with his family being all City fans and everything like that, and Villa continued their recent hex over Man City and Pep Guardiola in general. How are things, Paddy?
I'm not too bad. I don't know whether you've frozen or if everyone else can hear you or see you, but I can hear you, but I can't see you. So I don't know what's going on there. But as you can imagine, I'm absolutely delighted with the result. Didn't matter how it came. And all I want now is the hat-trick and to get it again next Saturday night.
That will be good. All right, yeah. Considering it was... considering it was 3 games that we were hoping to get points out of, considering how our start of our season went to. Now we're going to Liverpool and we're going to Anfield, albeit not a happy hunting ground, and going, you know what? Who says that we can't take at least a point from Anfield now? But we will have plenty of time to get on to talking about Liverpool later in the week. But what did you make of the, I suppose, of the Villa team, first of all, Paddy, when it was named on Saturday? Yeah, what was your thoughts? Now we didn't do a team sheet on Saturday.
I don't think there was too many complaints. I suppose the only So I couldn't really have any complaints. He played everybody that was in form. Buendia obviously being probably the main talking point. That and the decision to go with Pau Torres over Tyrone Mings, who I thought would have been brought in to marshal Erling Haaland, but there was no need because he didn't really show up on the day, thank God, or they didn't get the ball to him. But I think it was hard to argue with who he picked, and I suppose the only real talking point is who wasn't in the squad, and that's Harvey Elliott. But everything else, from my point of view, is probably as good as a team he could have put out there.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think the settled nature of the team as well, albeit Onana coming in that number 6 position. I think that's something that's going to play into Villa's hand, because we've got those players that are coming back, the Tielemans as well, I'm trying to think. No, actually, the Garcias, maybe Tyrone Mings, and so on. They're going to be pushing for places, and who's to say that they won't get their places back automatically? But Unai Emery is getting the spine of his team back, and the spine of his team seems to be playing pretty well in the last few games as well. I don't know whether I've lost Paddy, guys. I don't know. Yeah, Paddy's camera is frozen there. I'll keep on going anyway. I'll keep on talking while we're waiting for Paddy to reconnect there. I'll just take him off the screen there. It might make it easier for him to reconnect. But yeah, I've watched back this game again since the weekend, and it was an impressive enough performance from Aston Villa. It wasn't perfect, but it was impressive. And what I liked about an awful lot about it was that, once again, the structure and the stability that Villa had. I listened to the post-match interview with Matty Cash afterwards, and he spoke very well about his the build-up to the game. He was expecting it to be Jeremy Doku that he was going to be facing, but it wasn't. It was Savinho. And I think that kind of vulnerability and that Matty Cash kind of has, like, he's not media trained within an inch of his life or anything like that. And that was that kind of media training that he probably doesn't have. It was kind of refreshing to hear that he was like going, I was expecting Jeremy Doku, I got Savinho, and your man just kept on running at me for the first 5 minutes. And I was like, oh, Jesus, I think I'm going to need to come off here, because this is a completely different style of running that I was expecting, that we as a team were expecting, and that we were getting ready for him. We were doing all our shape work for him. He said, but, you got to compartmentalize that. You got to realize that it's still defending the box. You're just defending the box. And he reverted back into that. And obviously he played a really good game, culminating, I suppose, not culminating, but including that goal, and then culminating in in a great performance, I think, throughout that game, Paddy. I don't know how much you got of my little soliloquy there, Paddy, but I was just going on about Matty Cash and the interview he gave afterwards in the post-match interview with Ian Taylor and Kate Tracy there, and I thought it was just a nice, refreshing interview. There was no airs or graces about him, and he was just like, "Yeah, listen, look, I wasn't expecting that."
Yeah,
that's okay.
I don't think any of us were, because Doku has had a decent start to the season. He's always been a player that I felt has underperformed for Manchester City, but he has had a particularly good start to the season and has performed particularly well. So I obviously didn't like to see him coming on either, but I thought Matty Cash was just excellent from start to finish, and it's hard to argue with him being one of the players of the season so far, along with John McGinn. And look, where as he divides the fan base, as we know, and whatever your opinion is on him, he's got a new contract since this performance, which we knew was in the offing anyway. But it's absolutely brilliant for him. He's obviously first choice going forward, as we've previously discussed, and he had an absolute monster of a day on Sunday, topped off by an amazing goal with his left foot. Brilliant finish. I think if anybody else hits that, they're talking about it for weeks. But because it's Matty Cash, they won't be saying too much about it. But if Haaland finishes like that, or Bernardo Silva, where we're listening to it for till the cows come home. But it just goes to show, you take how many times we see Matty Cash flash them over the bar. We have to be taking more shots. In the last 2 games, we've won games from scoring goals from outside the box. Take the shots on. We saw Ollie Watkins get into the box in this game and not pull the trigger with his left foot. It's infuriating when a player does that, especially when you've got an opportunity to take a shot and goal. And a player like Ollie Watkins, who we know is more than capable of scoring goals, is just not taking that shot. But Matty Cash does, because he's got no fear. And he's had some great performances this year, and he's got a couple of goals under his belt as well, plus that pass that he hit last week for the winning goal against Spurs.
Yeah, and he actually mentioned that in a post-match interview as well, and he said, "Yeah, look," he said, "I'm not afraid to shoot." He said he's always, he fancied himself to have a shot, and look, we've seen those blown over the bar sometimes, but he kept it down in this instance. It goes in the back of the net, scores the wonder goal against Sunderland, if you don't want to blame the goalkeeper. Some people do, some people don't. And then again, he scored like a couple of goals for Poland as well. So, he's got his shooting boots on this year, all right, for sure. And look, Villa need to spread out those goals, because if you're only going to have essentially one number 9 in the squad, if he's not firing, the goals have to come from somewhere, and they have started to come from other places. And I think that's one great thing that Unai Emery has done with this team, and has done with teams in general, is that when Ollie Watkins has been faltering, and I suppose realistically throughout the course of the 2.5 years, really, the last 2.5 years, he has, and John Duran has come in and scored goals in that period, or Leon Bailey started scoring goals during that period, and now we've got goals coming from John McGinn, we've got goals coming from Malin, Rodgers has 1, and Matty Cash has popped up with 2 as well. So Unai Emery does find ways to get goals from, well, I suppose the team do as well, to get goals from other places. Now, is it sustainable to have it that way the whole time? No, you'd ideally like your striker to be 20-goal striker. But as you said there, and I alluded to this in the post-match as well, there was a couple of instances there where Ollie Watkins was not swinging his left foot at a ball, no matter what was happening. There was no way he was doing it, because he's devoid of confidence. And as you say, Matty Cash is on cloud 9. He swings a foot at it, goes in the bottom. First of all, it was a ropey first touch with his right foot, then his left foot swings it at it, and goes right in the corner where Donnarumma can't get to it. And fair play to him. That's where he was aiming for, and that's where it went. So you have to applaud him for that. And we get those 3 points, and more importantly, I think we get the 4th win in a row. And Villa's league position is now extremely healthy, as we've clawed back a lot of points on this concertinaed league, with hopefully more points to come against Anfield at the weekend.
Well, if you'd have told you after 9 games we'd be level on points with Liverpool, you would have expected us both to be in the top 4. But we're not far off it. Like Sunderland have 2 points more than us. sitting in the top 4, and that result doesn't look as bad as it did at the time. Bournemouth are sitting in the top 4. So there's a lot going on above and below us, but we're in a much healthier position. And look, be thankful that we can play against teams that open up and we get opportunities against, because it's much better to watch football like this than it is to watch us playing against Burnley or Sunderland. And look, there's no disrespect here. They need to play like that in order to get results. We played like that when we came up from the Championship. That's the way football has gone. I don't know how we're going to change this or how we're going to beat that low block, but we just seem to play much better and have much more of the ball when we're playing against better teams, which is nuts. Or say much more of the ball in the final third of the pitch anyway.
Right. And look, that brings, all you've got to do is look at the game at the weekend and see how much it brings. It brings players like Morgan Rogers out of their shell, the ability for when you've got somebody like John Stones who's pulling into that kind of central midfield position, playing as that inverted right back or inverted centre back, if you could be an inverted centre back, but pushing up into the defensive midfield position. What we were really good in doing there was making sure that Matheus Nunes committed further forward than he wanted to. And then we were very good at then just dropping a nice little ball in behind into that space. John Stones wasn't getting back to it. We had players who were able to get out to that position. Or even, it wasn't even long balls that we were dropping into that space. Like there was one time there when Buendia got the ball, and I think he just scooped it over Nunes to an on-rushing Luca Dean at one stage. So it was tactical the way that we wanted to draw their two fullbacks out of those positions and create space in behind them, so that so it really nullified that John Stones' ability to be able to step up into midfield and start dictate play from there as well. And Morgan Rogers, Emi Buendia, Jadon Sancho when he came on, John McGinn, they were all instrumental in doing that, because they all kind of moved, bar Sancho when he was there, he'd all kind of moved around in position and kind of took turns at trying to drag those players out of position, and it really worked very well. I just would have liked it to have been maybe a small bit more from maybe if we were able to do it, drag them a bit further forward, so somebody like Ollie Watkins could get a run in behind. There was one or two chances where he did, one he couldn't get to it, and I don't know, did he get onto one? I know the one that the people will remember is the one where he just couldn't get his toe to it. Donnarumma then gets a touch in it. It comes back to Ollie Watkins, but then it goes out for a goal kick. But yeah, there just wasn't a lot of those chances. But then again, we didn't really need him to be the focal point, because we were good at progressing the ball from out wide again, which is great to see, specifically against Man City. And we're going to need to do that against Liverpool. We're going to need to target Frimpong. We're going to need to target Kirkes if he's played, because they haven't had the greatest starts, and there is two massive spotlights on 90 million worth of players in those full-back positions, and they're great players, the two of them, but while they're having their little bit of their banana skin moment, at the moment, we need to capitalize on that, and we have the players that can do that. Paddy, did we hear anything about Buendia? Did we hear anything about his injury?
Other than he left the stadium in a protective boot and on crutches, it doesn't look good for next week at least. We don't know what the extent of the injury is, and we probably won't until the press conference later in the week. And that's going to be the one talking point about who comes in there, because is that tailor-made for a Jadon Sancho to start? I'd like to think so. But I think the weekend tells us that Unai and the scientists behind the scene don't think that he's 90 minutes ready. But that doesn't mean he wouldn't start against Liverpool, and I'm sure he would absolutely want to. I totally get how pissed off he was being taken off, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of whether they thought he could only play 45, 50 minutes anyway. Being brought on and being taken off is a bad look, and players hate it. They really do hate it. They'll tell you it's the worst thing that happens to them. So he needs to wrap his head around that, forget about it. Obviously, he was playing against a team that he started his career at, so he wanted to make an impression. So he just thinks that's the lasting impression. And I forgive him for it, because I know how it feels. It's a rotten feeling when that happens.
Yeah, there was. It was great to see Stato and was it Dave Reed mentioned? Dave Reed mentioned in Sky Sports as well. This is something Unai Emery does. Stato then mentioned that he's done it 10 times since he's been in Aston Villa. Brought somebody off and taken them off. Brought somebody on, and taken them off. Once it was the defender who got injured, who was brought on and had to come off, and Alex Moreno. And the other 9 times were exactly the type of player that Jadon Sancho is. Somebody who plays in the left wing or plays in the right wing. So it was mostly Coutinho, Emi Buendia, Leon Bailey. It was all those types of players that were brought on, they were taken off again. So it always seems to be tactical. But as you say, like, no player likes to be brought on and taken off again. When the adrenaline is flowing like that, your mind isn't even parked in neutral at that stage. You know, you're always in fifth gear when the adrenaline is going like that. So you're going to walk down the tunnel, or lot of players do that stuff. So I never really buy into that. But the one thing about this game at the weekend, and we're straying into this the whole time, is that and I'll bring it back to the City game.
It's okay to stray into it. We're all buzzing here, and we're looking forward to it. You know, and as I said to you last week, I would have taken 5 points out of these 3 games. We now have 6, with a real possibility of picking up at least another one at the weekend, the way we're playing. So we're okay to be buzzing, and we're okay to be down when we're bad. Or when we generally feel that we've been bad, or we just found it very hard to break down another team. So enjoy it while we can, and be buzzing and be looking forward to the next one, because we're only one bad decision against the world crashing in on our social media again. But look, this isn't the end of the world. He just proved that what was happening at the beginning of the season, there was a bit of a hangover there from last year. There was a little bit going on, and now everybody is talking like we can beat Liverpool. And look, we could mess it. It may not happen, but I think getting these 6 points have been really important.
And it will be interesting. What I was saying there was, it will be interesting. Like Sancho, you were talking about there, does he get to start to the weekend? Well, we've no Harvey Elliott, can't play. We've no, not that he was in the panel or anything like that. We've no Emi Buendia. Does he go with maybe, like, because there's another man who came in out of the cold and I thought played really well at the weekend, and that was Ross Barkley. I think maybe we might see Ross Barkley in that 10 position with Morgan Rogers on the left, John McGinn on the right at the weekend, or maybe he might play McGinn in the centre and play Gassand out on the right, because he seems to love the defensive ability there. But talk to me a small bit about Ross Barkley, because I think I think realistically, like, I think Unai Emery would be absolutely delighted with the shift he put in for the 20 minutes he was on.
I think so too, and I think I did forget. When he came onto the pitch, my son reminded me that is his natural position, to be playing behind a striker, and that's how he made a career for himself. It's just that in latter years we haven't seen him do that. And look, if we have him to be a Swiss Army knife in that midfield that can play off either side, that can play behind the striker, which we know he's been capable of, especially in his Everton days, and somebody who can sit in that 2 number 6 roles, it's brilliant to have those other options. And I thought he was excellent. I thought he was excellent carrying the ball. I thought he was excellent out of possession as well. He just worked really, really hard, and I'm delighted for him, because he's been through the mill, obviously, and he had some personal issues. But look, he's back to full fitness by the looks of it. And who knows, maybe it is him that starts against Liverpool, because they won't like, the Liverpool fans won't like to see him line up there either.
And I agree. I don't think he's going to get the start. I don't think it's going to be him that's going to get the start. I think probably Jadon Sancho gets it on the left. I think you've Morgan Rogers. Yeah, scored against him in the 7-2 as well, says Padge's matchup. You've got Morgan Rogers through the centre, and then John McGinn on the right. Or maybe he plays McGinn through the centre and Rogers on the right. I think that's probably the way he'll go. But options are the king in Unai Emery's tactical mind. And to have more options, like when you go into a team, when you go into a game and I know disrespect to Bradley Burrows, he played in the Virtu Trophy tonight. He played really well. He was unlucky not to equalise and to get it to 1-1. Unfortunately, they went down 1-0 to Leyton Orient in the Virtu Trophy, and now they're out of that. But when you've got, Bradley Burrows, when you've got TJ Carroll, like, so a lot of those younger players that are on the bench, you do kind of hamstring yourself unless you're 3-4-0 up. You're not going to go to them in the main. Yes, I know he brought on Bradley Burrows a couple of times, but you want to have the options. You want to be able to look at your full palette of colours and see what you're going to paint next, especially when you can draw something up tactically and you can make in-game changes like Unai Emery can. So yeah, great to see Ross Barkley there. Great to see him get some minutes under the belt, and hopefully I'd say we'll see him from the bench again at the weekend. Paddy, Villa obviously did an awful lot of defensive work in this game, specifically in the second half. Well, the first 10 minutes of the first half, and then in the second half, and they threw their body on the line. Who had the most blocks, do you think, for Aston Villa? Because Aston Villa had 17 blocks in this game, which is absolutely mental.
I have a feeling it may not be one of the obvious ones. I'm going to say Onana, maybe.
Onana had 4, and Matty Cash had 4 as well. Yeah, so both of them had 4. And that was my segue on to Onana. Talk to me about him, Paddy, because, you know, a player that's looked languid, a player that's looked almost like he was running in treacle sometimes. And then at the weekend, he just wasn't. He just didn't look like it. He just looked like he was. It's like as if somebody took him outside, WD-40 on the 2 knees, WD-40 on the hips, and everything was fine again, you know, which is great to see because he's such an imposing character. We need him to stay fit, and we want him to stay fit because he's physical traits that you can't teach. What did you make of him, Paddy?
Well, I enjoyed his performance, and we've seen flashes of it being in him coming off the bench. His ball carrying, specifically the back end of last season, was excellent. So we know he can do that. We know he can break up the play. We know he's a monster in the air. It's just every time he hits the ground, you just go, that's him gone for 6 weeks. And that's just the first thought that comes into your head. But every time he hit the ground at the weekend, he was bouncing back up. He had a couple of ones where he was obviously physically hurt, and you're going, oh, is he going to get back up out of there? And maybe he was killing time, whatever it was. But I really want him to continue, because at the weekend, he was a £52 million player that we bought. Absolutely. Every penny of it with a performance like that. But we just need to see consistency in it now. We need to see him do it week in, week out. We need to see him fit every week. How we do that, I don't know. You got to understand the mechanics of a big man like that playing in that position. You know, he's taller than most guys that would play in that position, so there's a lot harder on the body. There's a lot more that can break down in a man of that size. So I don't know what goes on in training and whatever. You know, the Everton fans will tell you he's made of glass. You get 3 games out of him, then he'll miss 6. I don't know, but I really hope we see a run of games the way he played last weekend, because he was a joy to watch, and we know he can do it. Now we've seen him do it for 90 minutes.
I want to share something up here, Paddy. Take a look. So I had mentioned him there, and on Who Scored here, one of the great things is you can get pass maps and touch maps here. And this is Amadou Onana's pass. These are all the positions in the field he passed the ball in. So it's like he covered a ton of ground. So, like, you know, and it was on my second viewing that I noticed how far up the field he got. So for a team that was defending so much, the left-hand side, as you can see here, is our defensive situation. So I'll bring up Martinez here. So that's where all Martinez's passes came from. Okay, so they were all his passes. So he actually played more of the ball in the attacking half than he did in the defensive half. And it wasn't until my second watching that I went, Christ, Onana is very high again, you know. And at the time, you know, when you come out of it and you feel, you know, you're watching, the adrenaline's flowing and everything like that, you don't kind of get that view in it. For example, here's Kamara's pass map. So Kamara obviously favouring that right hand side, because that's where they were coming like trains with Doku, with Savinho there. Onana favouring the left hand side. So Unai Emery, what I'm getting at here is Unai Emery's gone back to this kind of like it's like a quarters concept in American football, is the only way I can think about it, where each player takes half the field. It's nothing revolutionary or anything like that. He's done it with John McGinn before, inside there with Tielemans before as well. But when players play it right, and when players are able to stick to the assignment from that point of view, it becomes very compact when we need to have it, but then it allows them to break forward as well. And I think, to be honest with you, like these two guys here at 43 passes and 55 passes, they were involved. Obviously, Konsa has the most passes, but Konsa's passes were passing it in and around the box, as we see he does quite a lot of times, drawing players in. But the reason I'm bringing that up is, look, John McGinn was, I think it makes it like you need to have a John McGinn there to be able to have to give the stability, I think, to Onana and to Kamara there. John McGinn did that. Didn't have an awful lot of passes. Didn't have a ton of touches in the ball there. If we look at where John McGinn's touch map is here, let's just take a look at John McGinn's touch map. Very much so on that right hand side as well. So Aston Villa were protecting that right hand side, and rightly so. But by protecting that right hand side, McGinn was able to come back deep. Kamara was able to shadow over into that left hand side and allow Onana go forward into that more attacking position there. So not only were Man City kind of shuffling pieces in like like a jigsaw, people coming across so that people go forward, Villa were actually doing it in the counter attack as well. Unbeknownst, I suppose, unbeknownst to me, watching the game, when you're watching it back with all these data points that you're able to look at, you go, oh, Jesus, yeah, I see that now. I see where McGinn is actually further back, or where McGinn was, maybe not breaking forward as far as he could, and you see Onana at the other side of the field there. So it's getting back to that coherency. It's getting back to that kind of collective chemistry again that Unai Emery's system needs. And it's really interesting to see those pinpoint maps there whereby people are actually getting touches and taking passes of the ball.
Before you move off Onana there, you mentioned 43 passes, 42 of them successful, 98% pass percentage rate, 11 defensive contributions, 1 interception, headed clearances 2, clearances 3, blocks 4, tackles 3. That's what you want from a fella that size getting around the pitch to do it.
Didn't lose possession at all.
The big thing for me, well, he missed 1 pass. That was it. I think it was out of play, actually, if memory serves me correct.
But didn't lose possession.
That is huge for me, because I wouldn't consider him to be a great passer of the ball or a confident passer of the ball, maybe. But that's obviously come on leaps and bounds as well, and I hope that stays the same when the midfield is very compact.
Yeah, and as I say, somebody that big has massive footprints, and what I mean by that is even he must make a thud run around the field. He's not a big heavy guy or anything like that, but somebody when he's walking around the field, you can hear him coming. When he's running around the field, you can hear him coming, and that's what a lot of people say about Rodri is. Rodri's been such a great player for Man City. We all know his win record and all that when he's in the team. But people always said about that you didn't know Rodri was around you until he was around you, and then you could hear him because he's just a sizable man. And I'd say Onana is the same. Now, when Onana gets his big gangly legs around you, you know he's there, and there's a presence about him, I'd say, because he's so big too. Whereas Kamara wears the slippers in that situation. I'd say Onana wears the hobnail boots, and he's going to be in there to hopefully kick fellas up in the air as much as he can get away with over the course of the next while. And look, it's going to be bloody interesting, because we're only two games post talking about Lamar Bogard potentially staying in that 6th position for good for the rest of the year, and we're only 6 games away from post talking about Youri Tielemans still being our best player. So there are 2 more players that we can have in this position, and it's going to be a right royal rumble to see who's going to take those 2 positions and keep them their own for the rest of the season. It would be nice if we had Youri Tielemans at the weekend, pop him in the 10 and see what you could do there, but we don't. So I'm sure Mr. Tielemans will be itching to get back after the November international break and see where we can go from there.
Yeah, and it'd be great to have a full complement going into the busy Christmas period. So, and with all those European games, and of course the Christmas is looking hectic with Arsenal and Chelsea away. So, and Man United at home. So I'd like to have a full complement of players there before we look at what's going to happen in the January transfer window. Your favourite time of the year, Neil. It's only 8 weeks away. Won't be long
8
now.
Weeks away. Yeah, I'll potentially be moving house just beforehand. So the internet better be working in a new place. So otherwise I'll be doing them from my car on my personal hotspot, because I just love that too much. And I've even started stocking up stuff at the moment, because there's quite a lot of good young players out there at the moment. I don't know where they've all come from the last 18 months, but Jesus, there's some really exciting strikers and really exciting players in general, defenders knocking around in the continent at the moment, and they all seem to be between about 18 and 20, and they've all just seemed to blossom at the same time. So you'll be sick of hearing me talk about those in the coming weeks and months. Paddy, we're going to save the last hurrah and the last piece in this podcast for. We started off with Matty Cash, who obviously got the goal, but the unsung hero, Mr. Steady, the best defender, probably best English defender in the Premier League at the moment, and arguably, I would say, one of the top 5 best centre halves in the Premier League at the moment, Mr. Ezri Konsa. He's just getting better, Paddy, isn't he?
Well, I listened to a few podcasts today because I did a lot of driving, and a lot of the ones that are kind of, I call them generic podcasts, where they're talking about the Premier League in general. There were so many of them mentioned. I think I listened to 2 or 3 today, and each of them mentioned which Big Six club that Ezri Konsa was going to go to. And I think that probably just about sums up where he's at the moment, because there isn't a team in the Premier League that wouldn't want Ezri Konsa, or Ezri Konsa couldn't better them at centre half. So without me going on and telling people, because everybody knows how good he is, he's absolutely incredible. And to think how long he's with us and how well he's done with us, you know, he's well on his way to being a club legend here. And I just can't see him going anywhere because he's irreplaceable.
Will be interesting to see. Like, a lot of people immediately, a lot of Liverpool supporting friends I have go, like, over the last few weeks, been saying, "Jesus, we'd love to be able to get Konsa off you guys or whatever." And you know, and they're not saying it in an elitist way or anything like that, but like, we just be chatting about football and go, "Jesus, we take Konsa if you're ever selling him," kind of a way. Not like, "Oh, we're going to come and rob him off you." Nothing like that. But it's interesting because as we are playing Liverpool at the weekend, you know, one of the areas where they're looking is, they know that Konate isn't going to resign for them. They know that Virgil van Dijk is coming to the end of his his line, and they need to retool there. And Mark Gay is somebody that they probably will sign in January. He's not going to sign a new contract. I wonder, will they get him for a knockdown price in January? They all but had him signed. And it'll be interesting to see where else they look. I would imagine that they will go to the continent for another defender after spending 70 million or whatever they need to spend on Mark Gay. But if they come knocking on the door for Ezri Konsa, they better bring the big checkbook with them, because they've already splashed the cash this year. You know, we're going to want to drain teams of FFP funds in January if we are to. No, we're not. I don't think we sell anybody in January at all, because we've just never really done that. We've never done it to, like, say, sort of massive cog in the wheel like Konsa. But if we're going selling anyone at any stage, teams better come with big checkbooks, because it's going to be a case whereby we're going to want to drain FFP for other teams and want to elevate it for ourselves. So, like, we're the wounded dog here. So, and we're gonna hopefully bite, you know, have a couple more bites in us before we do get stable with a financial fair play side of things. And we may already even be there, so nobody really kind of knows where the hell we are at the moment. But
am I correct in saying it was
word.
nearly the agreed fee was nearly 100 million for Mark Gahey at the time?
It could have been. Yeah. It
So,
could have been.
like, everyone considers Mark Gahey to be a young player, but he's 25 at this stage. Ezri Konsa is only 28. So there wouldn't be a huge difference financially. You're still getting 4 potentially brilliant years out of Ezri Konsa if that was it. But for me, I wouldn't sell him. Absolutely no way would I sell him. I think he's irreplaceable. I think he's a better player than Mark Gahey. So, and Liverpool are in trouble in that department, as you say. He bought badly. He spent an awful lot of money, but he spent it all on full-backs and attackers where he didn't need them. He could have held on to Trent and given him a new contract. He could have kept Robinson within the team and spent that money at centre half. So he's bought badly, and hopefully we can exploit that at the weekend.
And we'll see. And that's an interesting point, Clarendon Blue, which says, would teams pay what we want for 28-year-old Konsa? It's all about resale value these days. I actually don't think it is amongst the top 6. I think they've actually figured out that they can buy who the hell they want when they want, and then in 3 years' time turn over players again. You just got to look at Arsenal have bought players now for who they're going to turn over, like the likes of Pierre Hincapié and those guys. They're for next year, and like he was bought at decent money from Leverkusen. So I think that like 60, 70 million for a player now for the top 6 or for the big 6, should I say, it's not going to be something that's going to be sneezed at. And if they want their player, because managers have short-term views on success and stuff like that, and Arne Slot knows that, like, if he goes 3 years without winning a league, and 3 years getting knocked out of the Champions League in like I don't think he will, you know, in quarterfinals, let's say, you know, his job is gone and they'll get the next up and coming manager. So short-termism, I think, in football is going to become all the more apparent. I think over the coming years, because it the only team that's going to buck the trend with that at the moment, and a lot of other teams are kind of looking at it, is Chelsea, obviously. And Maresca looks like he's setting fire to his own house at the moment, whatever he's doing. So and those Chelsea fans are not happy. Like, I saw a Chelsea fan lose his rag over talking about their second 11, and I'm looking at a second 11 with Liam Delap starting up front, with Andres Santos in there, with all these good young players in there, Malo Gusto, Jarl Hatto, and I'm going, Jesus Christ, talk about entitlement, like, you know, and that's kind of where we are, I suppose, with football at the moment, is that, you know, fans will give you a hard time in a short space of time, no matter who you are and who you bring in. So I don't know, would we get like 100 million for him? Obviously, I don't think we get that. I think Villa would hold out for 65, 70 for him, and but at the same time, I think Villa will be in such a good position that I don't think we're going to have to sell him. That's going to be the good thing about it. We're not going to have to sell him. So how long may that continue?
I think so too. I do believe there will be signings in January. Nothing major, but there will be signings. But I don't envisage we sell any of our talent unless
jewels,
unless the money that comes in is too good to refuse, which we know can happen and has happened. So we'll wait and see. But I just can't see someone paying north of 70 or 80 million for Ezri Konsa at the age of 28, or us accepting at the stage.
I actually genuinely can't see anyone on our team who we could sell, even if we wanted to, at the moment. And what I mean by that is, like, you know, who we could sell and then replace, even if we wanted to. Like, you were to talk to me 6 weeks ago, I'd say, Jesus Christ, give me, you know, and look, it's still early days with Amadou Onana, and you know, we've got a long period of time left before the window opens, but he probably would have been the one I had earmarked to go, yeah, you know, if we can get our money back on him now, it goes a long way at the FFP. And then, you know, we've got Lamar Bogard, we've got Tielemans, we've got whoever inside there. And maybe, you know, but now if he's going to keep on putting in performances like he did the weekend, and obviously small sample set and one swallow doesn't make a summer and all those things that you can think of, you know, maybe stability is the way to go. You know, if Unai Emery can continue to get a tune out of these guys for the rest of the year. But it will be interesting. Look, I think it's going to be interesting, and it'll tell us an awful lot about our financial heft if we do, and what way that's looking. Like, we could just as easily send Harvey Elliott back in January. We could just as easily send feckin' Jadon Sancho in January, regroup, buy a player instead, or maybe loan somebody of higher quality if we were in the top 4. Who knows? Like, who knows? There's actually a lot of avenues open to Aston Villa to do this on the cheap. Well, not on the cheap, but to do it maybe like we did it last year. Now that we've gotten a lot of our finances kind of sorted, it would seem on the outset, from an SCR point of view and an FFP point of view. And I know that we won't hit the marks with SCR, but we'll come, you know, we'll come within a manageable level of it, I think. So it's it's and I hate talking about the money side of things, but it's the necessary evil, unfortunately. It's necessary evil. Right, Paddy?
Somebody mentioned Paquetá there in the comments, linked again today. Can't see it with the money situation unless there was a sale, or we send back, as you mentioned, send back Harvey Elliott to Liverpool, which I don't see happening either. So we'll just have to wait and see. It's still a long way out to be linking us with players like that. Plus his reaction to us making a potential bid for him would probably, I would think it's taking the piss out of the management and Monchi or whoever was doing it at the time. So it's not the kind of attitude that he would like, I would imagine.
Yeah. And Kerry says here, we sold Duran and Diego Carlos in January, and both were big time players for us. They were, but you know, you don't have to ask any. You don't, like Diego Carlos. I would argue he wasn't. I would argue that Diego Carlos had 3 or 4 good games for Aston Villa, and the rest of the time he was actually decided the average. Duran obviously got all those goals, but at the end of the day, you know, I'd say there's a book in what went down with Duran, and you could. Well, there's no arguably. I think we got the better end of the stick there from when he's gone out to Saudi. But then again, he's at Fenerbahce at the moment, and you know there could be a sting in the tail when he comes back, or if he's even still playing football at that point in time. And when he comes back to when we get to play him later on in the year, because you know his volatile nature is something that the managers will have to deal with, I think, going forward until he calms down. You know, until he does calm down. And I don't think Unai and Unai Emery would have loved for him to have gotten it together at Aston Villa from a mental standpoint. But you know, we've a lot of talking about John Duran and his talent and everything like that. And sometimes the juice ain't worth the squeeze, and that's the decision that Unai Emery made, I think. I think that's fair to say, especially for the money that was coming in. So I think that's going to do it, Paddy. It's been a good chat. No, I must say, I enjoyed that debrief. And what are we, Tuesday? Trying to think what my work schedule is like. I think I'm supposed to have someone coming on tomorrow, and I can't remember who the hell it is. Better figure that one out anyway before I go to bed tonight. So you might hear from me. Might hear from me tomorrow again, and then we'll be doing any of our usual pre-match stuff on Thursday or Friday with the 8:00 game coming up on Saturday against Liverpool as well. So hopefully you guys stick around and join us for that too. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Look, Aston Villa on a 4-game.
It'll be Thursday, Neil. I won't be available Friday, so it'll be Thursday.
Grand job. Well, there you go. There's our production meeting done. It'll be Thursday. That's fine by me. So listen, join us for that, and we will then see you over the weekend. But Aston Villa on a 4-game run. Hopefully they hit there on the way to making a 5 at the weekend, and it would be fairy tale stuff, really, if you were to think about it, because it was games like the back-to-back wins, City and Arsenal, when we got to the Champions League. That was the belief. That was when we really gained belief, I think. Now, did we make it count over the next few weeks? We got a couple of injuries, no, but then we had to scrape through at the end of the second half of the season. But I prefer to be winning these games now and having the points in the bank than to be chasing it like we were at the start of the season. So it's all to play for, as Ron Sanders said at the start of the podcast there. And hopefully you'll come back and join us later on this week. Thanks a million, Paddy, and thanks a million to every single one of you for watching and for listening. Stay safe, stay healthy, and all that's left to say is up the Villa.
Up the Villa.